You're listening to Authentic Torah.
Yes!
Kal Chasidim Motzei Shabbos, December 16th. This past Shabbos was Parshas Miketz. We will be going on to Parshas Vayigash. This is the most exciting parsha, according to many, in the entire Torah. And now we will start. Parshas Vayigash. It's the most exciting parsha in the entire Torah. Many people will tell you it's the most exciting parsha in the entire Torah. Now, Yisrael is going to tell us why. Why do you think it's the most exciting parsha in the entire Torah?
Because Yosef told them that he was his brother.
So Dovi showed me this past week something very interesting. He showed me, it says, tshuva, tefillah, and tzedakah, right? So Dovi, now tell me what you told me, because it's very interesting, and I'm going to add on to it. Go.
That in the Parak Membeis Pasuk Parak Membeis Parshas Miketz and
Parak Membeis, yeah. What does it say?
Pasuk. Trying to think what Pasuk is. Oh, Yirchas. Pasuk Yirchas.
Yeah.
It says Zos Asu.
Very good. Okay, Zos Atsu, yeah.
Zos Asu.
Vichyu.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, fine.
And the gematria of Zos 408.
Yeah.
And then if you look at Som, Bamon
And Kol.
Kol with a kuf.
Yeah.
And the vav. Okay.
The gematria of that is
408.
right. Okay.
Which Som, Kol, and Mamon is tefillah, tzedakah, and tshuva.
Right.
Because Som means to fast. So when you fast,
so
you're
how do you
doing
get
tshuva.
Zos Asu and Vichyu? Oh, you do this and you'll live?
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to add on to that something totally amazing. Okay, Miketz. What does Miketz stand for? Mem is for Mammon, Kuf is for Kol, and Tzadi is for Tzom. Did your Rebbe say that? Did he say that? Oh, really? Oh, you didn't tell me that. Okay, maybe you did. I don't know. All right, so we have now. But here's something even more amazing. So this is well known in the Hasidic circles. So the last day of Hanukkah, what's the last day of Hanukkah called?
Zos Hanukkah.
Right, Zos Hanukkah. And right, okay,
That's
Zos.
my Rebbe told
Now,
me.
where does that come from? Where does that come from? Why is it called Zos Hanukkah?
Because it's the last day.
Because the beginning of the Kriyas HaTorah for the last day of Hanukkah is Zos, or Vizos. Okay, now, but it's no. So we always say, at least the schools that I went to and the schools that Devorah Pnina went to, always say that the final Yom Hadin is Hoshana Rabbah. Right? Have you heard that? Hoshana Rabbah, meaning tzaddikim get judged on Rosh Hashanah. Beinanim get judged when
On Yom Kippur.
on Yom Kippur. And then if you didn't make it on Yom Kippur, you have till Hoshana Rabbah. Hoshana Rabbah is when the things get sent out. But actually, you actually had the final day. The final day is the last day of Hanukkah.
Oh my gosh.
That's the final Yom Hadin, and that's when the final Yom Hadin is. Okay, now, so where in the world does anybody get this from? So first of all, Parshas Miketz always is associated with Hanukkah. Now this past year we had something very unique. Shabbos Hanukkah was not Parshas Miketz.
And in fact, it stopped right before Parshas Miketz.
So it was right before Miketz was Vayeshev. However, Shabbos Mincha, we learned Miketz last week. Okay? So for most of Hanukkah, we were orangutan in Parshas Miketz. We were doing the Shnai Merchav V'Chadar, everything, Monday, everything, it was Parshas Miketz. So Miketz is very much Mashpia Hanukkah. Miketz, as we pointed out, is a Rashi Tevos for Mammon, Kol, and Tzom, which we pointed out. Mammon is Tzedakah, and Dovi, and Kol is Tefillah,
Because your
and
voice makes
Tzadi
it
is
feel-
Tzom, which is fasting. Okay, and then it says in Pasuk Yud Ches, which Dovi's Rebbe said Zos Asu V'Chio. So Zos, the gematria is 408, which is the same gematria as Kol, Tzom, and Mammon.
Because they both
And it says,
equal
do this
one.
V'Chio and you will live. And it says this, Parshas Miketz, which is Hanukkah, so it could be that this is, I don't know if it's the source for the final Yom Hadin, is the last day of Hanukkah, which is Zos. It's probably not the source, but I don't know. There's something there.
That's why.
Okay. So you're learning Torah in what grade? What kita?
Second.
You're in second. What is it? Kita Beis or
Kita Gimel.
Kita Gimel, which is second grade. Okay. So I never heard this thing about Hanukkah until I was after high school. So fine. I guess that's. Again, now you said, what did your Rebbe say about Hanukkah? About the Zos? Did he say anything about Zos?
No. He didn't
No,
say Zos
but-
Hanukkah.
But you said it was not Zos, it was Vizos. Or something. So I think you might be right. Anyways,
It says Zos Hanukkah.
now it's interesting because it's in Pasuk
No,
Yud
but
Ches.
he also gave us the bounce house because he finished all the Mikdash before Hanukkah.
Oh, he gave you a bounce house?
Yeah.
What do you mean he gave you a bounce house?
No, he blew up a bouncy house.
Oh, yeah?
Like one of those.
Fine, where
small
did so
bouncy
you
houses.
jumped
He
on it?
also-
Hold on,
Yeah.
you jumped on the bounce house where? Where did he put it?
in his classroom. It's one of those small bouncy houses.
In the classroom?
Yeah, it was one of those small ones. We moved
Okay.
all the tables.
Fine.
And it also had a basketball hoop in it.
Okay, it also had a basket. Now we go on. This past Shabbos Mincha, we started with Parshas Vayigash. Now, there's 3 places in the Torah where it says Vayigash. Okay? You're not going to know the 3 places. So, one of them is by Avram Avinu and Sodom. It says, okay, another one is by Eliyahu Hanavi, and the third one is over here, by Vayigash, where it says, Vayigash Elav Yehuda, Yehuda approached. And in all 3 places, it consists of, like, the person's just, they're like bubbling over, like with, they're just like a certain energy that they never even knew they had, because they're hope. It's like they're stuck. Okay, Yehuda's stuck. Here's why. He told Yaakov Avinu that if I do not return, who was Binyamin, then I have sinned before you for all time. I lose my chelik of olam haba. And here he is. Yosef is taking away Binyamin. Yosef says, the one in whose possession this silver goblet was found, he will be my slave. Now, where was the silver goblet found? Where was it found? In whose possession? You saw that.
In Binyamin's possession.
In Binyamin. So who's going to be taken away?
Binyamin.
Binyamin. Okay, what did Yehuda tell Yaakov? Yaakov said, I'll let you go. Yehuda said, first we had Reuven. Reuven said something. And if there's any distractions, we'll move. Okay? You'll have to let me know. Okay? So, first we had Reuven. What did Reuven say to Yaakov? Reuven said that if I fail to bring back Binyamin, you can kill my 2 kids. Okay? Now, that's not going to do any good. Why? Because now it's even worse for Yaakov. Now he loses Binyamin, plus he loses 2 of his grandkids. So he's not interested in that. It's not a good deal. Yaakov says, no, you're not going. Okay? Now, Yehuda comes and he says, if I don't bring back Binyamin, I've sinned before you for all time. I lose my chelik b'olam haba. Yaakov says, okay, go. Fine. Here we go. Yehuda's there. Yosef takes away Binyamin. Yehuda's stuck. He can't go back to Yaakov. So he really doesn't know what to do. So, okay. He can't talk to, he thinks Yosef is the king. He can't really do anything. But, comes Parshas Vayigash. So when a person becomes trapped, they a lot of times become aware of powers they never knew they had before. And you'll see sometimes, and Dovi, if you can please, I'll have to move, because keep moving up. Okay. Sometimes, he says that, sometimes you'll see, like a person gets stuck under a car, and an old lady just lifts the car. Because the old lady, it's her child, and the old lady, she's not able to lift the car. But a person gets an ability to do things they never even knew they had. And in fact, they don't even have that ability. Just somehow they develop like superhuman strength during times like this. And this is one of those times. Vayigash. And he approached. Yehuda goes up to Yosef. This is one of the most dynamic or dramatic scenes in the entire Torah. And if we were to read it with the Midrashim, like the earth starts quaking. You'll see, he says, please, Your Highness.
Imagine you were there. Imagine you were
right.
Rabbi, this spells Vayigash.
Yeah. He says, please, Your Highness, let me say something to you personally. Do not be angry with me, even though you were just like Paro. You asked if we still had a father or another brother. We told you we have a father who was very old, and the youngest brother is a child of his old age. He had a brother who died, and therefore he is the only one of his mother's children still alive. His father loves him. Now, before we continue, I want to say one thing though. All Yosef wants to see is that they're going to fight for Binyamin. So, why? Because from Yosef's perspective, they might still hate him. And if they hate him, they're going to kill him. He doesn't know that he doesn't know what the brothers are thinking. Okay? All he knows is that Yaakov loved Rachel more than Leah. Therefore, Yaakov favored Rachel's children, and the brothers were jealous of Rachel's children. Yosef was one of Rachel's children. The question is, maybe the brothers did tshuva. Maybe back then, the brothers were willing to sell their brother into slavery. They were even willing to kill Yosef. The question is, have they changed? That's Yosef's question. Because if they have not changed, Yosef cannot tell them who he is. Because then they're going to kill him. He wants to. Now he's using Binyamin to figure out if they've changed. So you follow him? Okay. So what he's doing is he's putting them in an impossible situation, and he wants to see, are they just going to say, what they could say, you know what, we always wanted to get rid of Binyamin anyways. Just like by Yosef. If Yosef would have been taken, many years ago, if Yosef would have been taken by some king, it'd be like, oh, Baruch Hashem, we don't have to kill him, the king took him. Are they going to do the same thing with Binyamin? They're going to be like, oh good, we hated him anyways. He's one of Rachel's kids. Yaakov for sure favored Binyamin more than anyone else. And he did, he wouldn't let Binyamin go. So, phew, good. Now he's there. Or are they actually going to fight for Binyamin? If they fight for Binyamin, then they've done tshuva, and Yosef can now tell them who he is. Okay. Here we go. So Yehuda walks up to Yosef and says, please, Your Highness, let me say something to you personally. Do not be angry with me, even though you are just like Paro. You asked if we still had a father or another brother. We told you we have a father who is very old, and the youngest brother is a child of his old age. He had a brother who died, Yosef, right? They assumed Yosef died. Now, they're talking to Yosef, but they're saying he had a brother, Binyamin's brother died. Okay, he had a brother who died, and therefore he is the only one of his mother's children still alive. His father loves him. You said to us, bring him to me so that I may set my eyes on him. We told you the lad cannot leave his father. We told you no. If he left him, his father would die. You replied, if your youngest brother does not come with you, you shall not see my face again. We went to your servant, our father, and told him what you said. When our father told us to go back and get some food, we replied, we cannot go. We can only go if our youngest brother is with us. If he is not with us, we cannot even see the man in charge. Your servant, our father, said, you know that my wife Rachel bore me 2 sons. One has already left me, and I assume that he was torn to pieces by wild animals. So Yosef's hearing the whole story now. Okay, Yosef's saying, oh, that's what they told Yaakov, or Yaakov thinks that. I have seen nothing of him until now, said Yaakov. Now you want to take this one from me too? If something were to happen to him, you will have brought my white head down to the grave in evil misery. And now, when I come, now, who's speaking to who? Dovi, who's speaking to who? Yehuda. Okay, he says, who's speaking to who? Hello, mister. Come on. Okay, then we're eventually going to go back, because I don't know what you were thinking about. But just, Yehuda's speaking to Yosef, okay?
Don't go in Disneyland.
Okay, and now when I come to your servant, our father, the lad will not be with us. His soul is bound up with the lad's soul. Yaakov's whole everything, it's what he cares about. It's Binyamin. I will have brought your servant, our father's white head down to the grave of misery. Besides, I offered myself to my father as a guarantee for the lad. And I said, if I do not bring him back to you, I will have sinned to my father for all time. So now let me remain as your slave in place of the lad.
Technically, it could be because.
So Yehuda says, let me be the slave. Let Binyamin go free, I will be the slave. Let me remain as your slave in place of the lad. Let the lad go back with his brothers.
No.
For how can I go back to my father if the lad is Binyamin, if the lad is not with me? I cannot bear to see the evil misery that my father will suffer. Now, what do you think is going to happen now?
We are speaking to Yosef.
What?
We are speaking to Yosef.
I know you speaking to Yosef. Okay. Yosef cannot hold in his emotions. Since all his attendants were present, he cried out, have everybody leave my presence. Therefore no one else was with him when Yosef revealed himself to his brothers. He began to cry with such loud cries that the Egyptians could hear it. So all of a sudden, this king, he's crying away so loud that even after they left, they could still hear him crying. The news of these strange happenings reached Paro's palace. So Paro's sitting on his throne, even he could hear what's going on. Yosef said to his brothers, I am Yosef. Is my father still alive? His brothers were scared, they could not respond. Please come close to me, said Yosef to his brothers. When they came closer, he said, I am Yosef, your brother. You sold me to Egypt. Now don't worry or feel guilty because you sold me. Look, God has sent me ahead of you to save lives. There's been a famine in the area. Okay, now, if we really want to do, if we have the Me'am Loes, it has the full story according to all of Chazal, and it's a very magnificent story. So, and I think there is a Me'am Loes in the shul, but I'm not sure. Hi. How are you? Hi, good. We will now reveal the dialogue, the conversation between Yehuda and Yosef, leading to Yosef revealing himself to his brothers. It is a very beautiful story, he says. So much that our sages say that angels came down from Shamayim, the Malachim came down to listen to this conversation. Holy cow! Okay, he says that. So what happened? Who came to listen? Did Gramps come to listen?
No.
Who? Who came to listen to the conversation? Malachim, okay? Whose conversation? Abbott and Costello? Who did the Malachim come to listen? Yosef and Yehuda, okay? We'll also get an idea of the strength of Yehuda and the other brothers. You're going to hear a story about earthquakes. Ephraim and Menashe get involved. Okay, Dovi, you're listening? Yeah, you're listening? This should be very exciting. You should want to listen over here, okay? When the brothers saw that Binyamin had been caught red-handed, they all stood aside. Still listening? Dovi, you listening? Okay. Yehuda was the only one ready to risk his life opposing Yosef, since it was he who had guaranteed his safety. He threw himself down at Yosef's feet and begged him to free Binyamin. Okay, so what's Yehuda doing right now? He put his life at risk. He could be killed. Okay? What did he do? I need to make sure you're following because nobody looks like they're following. Yehuda also came forward because he was the leader of the family, and so he was like a king. The other brothers said, when two kings debate, we have no business mixing in. The other brothers were also very angry with each other and could not agree to a plan. Only Yehuda was prepared with a reasonable plea, as we shall see. All the brothers backed off. They all watched the scene. This was like a boxing match, okay? Yehuda was prepared for three possible courses of action. First, he would present a well-reasoned defense. Taken literally, his words were a plea. He asked Yosef to have mercy and free Binyamin. He said, please have rachamim and free Binyamin. If one analyzes the statement carefully, however, he will see in it a veiled threat that Yehuda would engage Yosef in battle if he refused to release Binyamin. Yehuda was obviously ready to kill Yosef and all his men. If you look at the words carefully, you will see that Yehuda actually was also threatening Yosef to kill him. If neither of these two courses of action were successful, Yehuda was ready to use his ultimate weapon, tefillah. He would pray to Hashem that Hashem would help them and let them find a way out of their predicament. Yehuda began by saying, please, your excellency, let me speak a word in your ears. Don't be angry with me. Normally, people do not whisper secrets into a ruler's ears. Okay? Conversations with the ruler were usually carried out through a spokesman or interpreter. Yehuda wanted to be an exception to this rule, and he did not want Yosef to be angry with him for making such an unusual request. So Yehuda's about to whisper something into his ear. Okay? I think you let him go. I'll be your slave. Okay? He also asked to speak a word in Yosef's ears, in the plural. Obviously, when one whispers a secret, he could whisper it only into one ear. Yehuda meant to say, pay careful attention to my words, that my words enter your ears well. So I don't know if he actually said something into his ear, but he was saying, listen to me very carefully. Yehuda said, don't be angry with me, for you are just the same as Paro. You are considered like a king, and we have a tradition that when the king loses his temper, his reign is taken from him. You will lose your kingship. If you get angry, you lose your kingship. You must therefore not become angry. Some say, and he says, I think you're in like pizza land already. So some say that Yehuda was actually referring to one of Yosef's servants. And he said, let your servant speak a word into your ear, and do not be angry with your servant. I want your servant Menashe to whisper the words in your ear so that no one will hear. Now we know Menashe, I think, was the translator. Okay? You will see that he himself was the one who placed you will see that Menashe was the one who put that silver goblet in Binyamin's sack. That's what Yehuda said. I am sure that he was trying to frame my brother. He was trying to get Binyamin in trouble. So he's telling Yosef, who he thinks is like the king, he's saying, your servant, he doesn't know Menashe is his son, but he says, your servant over there, he's the one who did all this. I ask you to order him to tell you the truth and not become angry at him. So he tells Yosef, make sure he tells you the truth. You are just the same as Paro, and Paro never becomes angry at his men. Yosef gave Yehuda permission to speak. Yehuda said, when we came to Egypt the first time, we thought that you were God-fearing, because that's what Yosef said. Now, however, you are acting just like Paro. I am just as important as you are, Yehuda said, and my father is just as great as your master Paro. I swear by the life of my father, and I have never sworn falsely, that if I draw my sword, I will not put it back until Egypt is filled with corpses. So Yehuda says, I will destroy all of Egypt. Maybe your ears have not yet heard about the Shechem massacre, where we wiped out an entire city because of our sister Dinah. I realized Yosef was actually married to Dinah's daughter, okay? And Yosef's...
I already know that.
Okay. We defended her to the hilt, even though she was not destined to give rise to one of the 12 tribes. It would not be one of those among whom the land of Canaan will be divided. Now, Menashe, of course, is the grandson of Dinah, and he is one of the 12 tribes. But what do you think we'll do to rescue Binyamin? He is one of the 12 tribes which are destined to share the land equally. Even if it means destroying the world, we will not leave him in your hands. Don't you realize that in Canaan, we have as much power as you have here? He's being very chutzpahdik. you have to realize, like, for someone to say this to a king is like very obviously one of your men has framed Binyamin. Framed means like set him up and tricked, made him look like a bad guy when he's not. You are acting as if you are totally unaware of the possibility. Since everyone here is suspect, I would prefer to speak to you personally. Legally, if a man steals and is unable to repay his theft, he is sold as a slave until he works it off. Binyamin can simply return the theft. You might argue that this is not the law in Egypt, but you caused Binyamin to be brought here and promised to keep an eye on him. He should not be harmed for having obeyed your order. You should therefore judge him according to the law of his native land. True, we told you that we would be your servants, we and the one in whose hand this goblet was found, but this was interpreted incorrectly by your translator. He thought that we would all stay here and be your slaves. This obviously was not our intention. How could we make such a commitment, knowing how much anguish it would cause our father? When we said that we would be your slaves, we meant that each one of us would take turns being your slave for 1 year each. The first year, one of us would stay here as a slave and the other brothers would return home. The next year, another one of us would come to take his place and he would return home. In such a manner, we would serve you for the rest of our lives, each one for a year at a time. I therefore urge you, Your Excellency, please let me speak to you directly without an interpreter. He will not transmit our words properly. You see that he already misinterpreted one thing that we said. So the interpreter is already messing up, says Yehuda. Furthermore, our conversation is likely to touch on sensitive, ambiguous points. Some things that I may say will be interpreted for good or for evil. Meaning, there's things, if you don't speak directly to the person, you're talking a different language, so you might think it's good, it might be bad. I want to speak to you, but only on the condition that you promise me that you will not become angry with me. I therefore said that you are just like Paro. This can be interpreted for good or for bad. Paro is a notorious. Paro has some problems. Okay, you may have such designs on Binyamin, very much as Paro desired you for this reason. Okay. Furthermore, Paro is well known for not keeping his word. He made a law that no slave could occupy a position of power, and immediately violated it by making you his viceroy, is giving you the power. So now it's very interesting. So apparently Yehuda now knows some of the story here. Yehuda doesn't know he's talking to Yosef, but he knows the person he's talking to used to be a slave. According to this, because Paro is well known for not keeping his word, he made a law that no slave could occupy a position of power. And you were a slave, and now you are a position of power. So you are just like Paro, having all his bad traits. You can, however, also interpret my words in a positive light. When I said that you are just like Paro, I could have meant that I consider you as great as Paro. You therefore see that words are ambiguous and equivocal, whatever that means. The same words can be taken two ways, and there's a great difference between them. The same was true when we told your man, we will be slaves to my Lord. We did not intend that we would all remain here as slaves, since that would not be proper.
But you didn't put it in here, so I could see it.
What with an old father who would not have anyone to care for him? We meant that each of us is ready to be your slave for a year, one at a time. Since your interpreter did not understand our intentions, I would prefer to speak to you directly without any intermediary. Even if you say that we meant literally that we would be your slaves, we only said it in a moment of panic, when we were arrested as thieves. When people are arrested, they say that they are willing to accept any punishment in the world as long as they are given a chance to prove their innocence. One must behave humbly and discreetly at such a time. We made such a statement, but that does not give you a legal right to keep us all as slaves. If you are truly God-fearing, you will not commit such an illegal act. Oh, I know that you are saying that if you keep Binyamin, he will be able to benefit from his servitude, so you will not be punished by God for keeping him against his will. I can think of three such benefits immediately. First, he will be a slave to the ruler of all Egypt, and this can lead to many advantages. In time, he himself can aspire to high position, just as you attained. I know that you yourself were once a slave, but you rose to become the ruler of all Egypt. Second, he will learn much wisdom from you, as well as the royal manners and protocol. why he may even be able to learn all 70 languages. Seeing so much wealth can also cure him of his kleptomania, which was what caused him to steal your goblet. Third, he will be able to sustain his father in times like these when there's famine in the world. Since he'll be in your palace, he will be able to send ample food back home. Still, I tell you, that none of this gives you an excuse to hold Binyamin as a slave against his will. Meaning he's saying, you might think God's not going to punish you, because you're going to give Binyamin a lot of schusim. He's going to be able to save the whole world. But no, because you should know that a previous Paro held our great-grandmother Sarah. Do you remember that story? Sarah in his palace for just one night against her will. There was a story, Paro took Avram Avinu's wife, Sarah, and as punishment, he became a leper. Since you have falsely accused Binyamin of being a thief, you will also be stricken with leprosy. This is the divine punishment for slander. You will be just like that Paro. Binyamin's mother died because my father inadvertently cursed her and said, the one with whom your gods are found will not live. Beware my father's anger. If you value your life, you are in your prime of life and should not die before your time because of this incident. You are just the same as Paro. If I unsheath my sword, I will begin with you and end with Paro. I therefore caution you to be very careful in what you do. Hearing this, Yosef gave a signal, and Menashe stamped his foot. Now listen to this. Okay, so Yehuda said what he said, right? He threatened to destroy all of Mitzrayim. If you don't give us Binyamin back, I will kill. Egypt will be filled with dead bodies, and I will kill you, and I will kill Paro. Okay, so now Yosef gave some signal to Menashe. Let's say he went like that. Okay, and then Menashe stamped his foot with all his might, making the palace shake as from an earthquake. Okay, so now the palace is shaking because Menashe. Yehuda said, "This must be someone from our father's family. No one else in the world has such strength." So now Yehuda is trying to figure out.
Now he knows a lot about. First, he knows he's a slave. He was a slave. Second, he knows he's from Yaakov's family. Just these.
Now,
still trying to figure out.
Then Yehuda then let out a war cry that contained so much spiritual power that it was detected by Dan's son Chushim in the land of Canaan. And Chushim, I think, was deaf. He wasn't able to hear, but this he was able to hear. Yehuda, so usually using his mystical powers, Chushim came to Yehuda's side in a twinkling of an eye. Chushim ran all the way there. Both of them together let out war cries, roaring like lions. Besides their actual volume, these cries also contain great spiritual power. As a result, 300 Egyptian aristocrats fell to the ground. So 300 people fainted in Egypt. And their faces became twisted in terror. They remained like this all their lives. Two cities, Pitom and Ramses, which were not far from Memphis, the capital of Egypt, were also destroyed by their cries. So we already have two cities were already destroyed just by the two of them roaring like lions. Okay, and then we have 300 people who just fainted. Taking Yehuda and Chushim as an example, the other brothers also began stamping on the floor. Breaking it to pieces and causing Yosef to fall from his throne. So Yosef now fell off. All of these things are in Chazal. It brings footnotes. The earth trembled so much that even Paro, who was in his own palace, fell from his throne. This is the meaning of the verse. The sound was heard in Paro's house. Then what did he hear in his house? He fell off the throne. Yehuda prepared for battle, and Yosef saw signs of his great spiritual power. Yosef became scared and said to himself, before long he will kill me through his rage. The sign that Yosef saw was that blood started streaming out of Yehuda's right eye. Some say that it came out of both eyes. Yehuda also had a hair in the Yehuda had one hair in the middle of his chest And when he became angry, it would stand straight up, which is called like that, penetrating all 5 garments that he was wearing. So
It goes through all 5 garments.
right, his chest became covered with pieces of copper, and he would pluck them off and chew them up with his teeth. While everyone was trembling, Yehuda put his hand to his sword and tried to draw it, but he was not able to.
Why?
He said to himself, the man before me is obviously a tzaddik. Like he saw Hashem was making it, he could not take his sword. Regaining his composure, Yosef pounded his foot against the stone platform upon which he was sitting, pulverizing it into gravel. Startled, Yehuda said, this man seems to be stronger than I. He was ready to risk his life to rescue Binyamin, but when he saw that he cannot draw his sword, he began pleading reasonably once again. So now he realized actually he can't do anything. He tried, but he sees now he has to go back to talking again to Yosef. My Lord asked his servants, do you have a father or brother? Now it'd be interesting, by the way, to see how do Chazal know all this? Which words? They know all this just from here. Vayigash Yehuda Vayomer Yoniv. I'm not sure how we'll have to look that up. But he said, my Lord asked his servants. So now we're back to a conversation. Do you have a father or brother? We said to my Lord, we have a father who is old, and there's the youngest, a child of his old age. Hey, we read all this in there, so now we're going to the commentary. Binyamin is the only surviving son of his mother Rachel. Our father was very concerned lest he meet with an accident.
He's not, because
right. Our father was scared that there might be an accident, and since the Satan dances in times of danger, the Satan's meraked Allah, that's the word. He dances, and when it's dangerous, but the Satan loves to kill. Yehuda began by saying, you asked us, do you have a father or brother? Actually, if one studies the account of their initial encounter, one does not find that Yosef asked such a question. This is because the Torah only relates parts of the dialogue that were unique to Yaakov's sons, such as Yosef's accusation that they were spies. So apparently there was a lot more that went on. It wasn't Yosef said, oh, you were spies, and that was it. There was a lot more that went on, which we're only finding out right now. Because Yehuda... Because Yehuda began by saying, you asked us, do you have a father or brother? But it actually, in the Torah, doesn't really say that Yosef asked them that, but apparently he did. This is, we find that Yaakov said, why did you have to tell them all this? But he asked them that. So this is because the Torah only gave such an accusation. Fine. With regard to the question as to whether their father is alive or whether they had any other brothers, they were no different from anyone else. Everyone was asked about his family, since the grain was strictly rationed according to the precise needs of their dependents. Meaning, he had to know how many people they're getting grain for. And he needs to know, do they have a father, do they have a mother? This was not a time to sell everyone all that they wanted. Yosef was very much like a sea captain who only gives his crew what they need to eat, so that they will not lack food later. If Yosef asked everyone about his family, he would certainly have asked his brothers if they had a surviving father or other brothers. He was very eager to find out if Yaakov and Binyamin were still alive. And Yehuda said, and now if I come to my father, and the lad, meaning Binyamin, is not with us, it will be a catastrophe. My father's soul is bound up with that of the lad, with Binyamin. Although this may seem redundant, Yehuda was actually presenting a very logical argument. He was saying what we call a kal v'chomer. Yehuda said, how can you think that we would leave without Binyamin? When we came home from Mitzrayim, the lad was obviously not with us. He had remained with his father in Canaan. The first time around, did they bring Binyamin with them? No. So how much effort did we expend until our father agreed to let him go with us the second time? Meaning it took us a lot to get Binyamin to come with us. How much grief did he experience since his soul is bound to Binyamin's? Now if we come home without him, our father would surely die of grief. There is no comparison between the feelings that a father has for his son when he sees him day and night and the feelings that he has when he is gone. Our father is yearning for him constantly, thinking about him every moment. If he had so much grief when Binyamin was still home, he would certainly die if Binyamin is not with us when we return now. If I knew that our father would wait for an explanation, I would not plead so urgently. I would leave Binyamin behind.
Perhaps I would be able to explain to my father that Binyamin was arrested on suspicion of stealing the goblet and that he had to be left in Egypt. Are you listening? What's going on? Are you listening or just... Hey, he says that. Is this above your head? Okay, we'll have to make it more into 4-year-old language soon. But when the rule at 5-year-old, I don't know, how old are you? You're almost
4 and a
5.
half.
When the ruler's anger cooled down, we would be able to seek a royal pardon and bring him back. But here's the thing. I know that as soon as my father sees that Binyamin's not with us, he would drop dead on the spot. I will not even have a chance to explain what happened to Binyamin. Since I guaranteed his safety and did not bring him back, my father will immediately assume that he is dead. Now, they're going to end up going back without Binyamin, I believe. Right? Yehuda therefore said, as soon as he sees that the lad is absent, he will die. The word kiroso, with an initial cough, indicates immediacy. The instant that Yaakov sees that Binyamin is absent, he will die. Yaakov had actually said, you will have brought my white head down to the grave in evil. When Yehuda repeated his words, however, he said, I will have brought the white head of our father down to the grave in misery. Yaakov was afraid that Binyamin would die on the way, just as his mother Rachel had. He therefore said that he would go down to the grave in evil. Sheol is also Gehenim, and Yaakov was afraid that he would be punished in Gehenim. He had a tradition that if none of his sons died during his lifetime, he would be able to avoid punishment in the next world. If Binyamin died, this would be a sign that he would be subject to such punishment. Yehuda, of course, knew that Binyamin was still alive. He therefore said, I will have brought our father's white head down to the grave in misery, but not to Gehenna. I'm afraid that he will go to the grave in misery, since he would think that Binyamin is dead. Some commentaries say that the he in Yehuda's statement, when he sees that the lad is absent, he will die, does not speak of Yaakov, but of Binyamin. Yehuda said, when my father sees that the lad is absent, Binyamin will die. This statement can be understood through the following story. Okay, we're about to say a story. So he says, are you ready for a story? Do you want to hear a story? The Gemara tells us that Rav Yehuda, the son of Rav Chia, was the son-in-law of Rav Yanai. He would spend all week in the yeshiva delving into the Torah. And on Friday night, he would return home for Shabbos. When he returned, he would always be accompanied by a pillar of fire. So you can imagine the scene. He was so kadosh. When he came home Friday night, he was away all week studying Torah. He came home Friday night with what, Yisazev? Did he come home with a challah? What did he come home with? Friday night, what did he come home with? A pillar of fire. Right? A pillar of fire would just follow him around. One week he became so engrossed in his studies that he was delayed and he cannot return home. He wasn't able to get home. And Rav Yanai did not see the usual sign. He said if Rav Yehuda were still alive, he would certainly come home on Friday night. He would not violate the commandment, her conjugal rights, meaning he has to come home to his wife. It must be he's dead. He shall not diminish. In the case of a Torah scholar like Rav Yehuda, the regular time to come home is every Friday night in honor of Shabbos. No sooner that he had said that than Rav Yehuda actually died. The Gemara explains that even when a tzaddik makes an inadvertent statement, it comes true. The same would be true here. Yehuda therefore said, if Yaakov sees us coming without Binyamin, he will say to himself, really, you're not any closer than anyone else.
It was 9, it was 6, 6, and 2, but there was 2 more.
Oh, you want to finish the story here or no?
I'm going to get pizza and we're going to
So Yehuda said, if Yaakov sees us coming without Binyamin, he will say to himself, if he were alive, he would be coming with them. Yehuda guaranteed his safety under threat of excommunication. Since Binyamin is not with him, he is certainly dead. Since my father is a great tzaddik, his very words will cause Binyamin to die, and it will be your fault. The first time we came here, continued Yehuda, you accused us just because we entered the city from all 4 directions. How many people have come here to buy grain?
Did you ask any of them? Did you ask all of them their occupations and countries of origin? Of course not. They bought their supplies and went on their way. In our case, however, you accused us and wanted to know everything about us. It was as if we had come to marry your daughter, or you wanted to marry our sister. Still, we held nothing back. Yehuda chose his words carefully when he said, it was as if we had come to marry your daughter, or you wanted to marry our sister. If Yosef married their sister, they would still have to respect him. And if any of them married Yosef's daughter, they would have to show him the respect due a father-in-law. Yehuda therefore chose his words carefully, so as to show full respect to Yosef. And actually, the Medrash derives Yehuda's statement from his opening words. You asked us, do you have a father or brother? Since Yosef had asked them, do you have a father? It seemed to indicate that he wanted to give his daughter to one of them in marriage. He therefore wanted to know if they had a father who could pay the dowry. He also wanted to know if she would have in-laws with whom to live. When he asked, do you have a brother? It seemed that he wanted to marry their sister. A woman's children usually takes after her brothers. So Yosef was interested in all the brothers to see if they were all good. Why is it, asked Yosef, now Yosef starts talking. Why is it that you speak more than any of your brothers? This is to you, like, why are you, I never saw someone like you, engaging in debates all day long. If I let you, you would keep on speaking until morning. That's what Yosef says to Yehuda. True, replied Yehuda. One should not bother a ruler with so many words, but what can I do? I guaranteed the lad's safety and told my father that if I did not bring him back, I would bear the blame for the rest of my life. I made a pledge that if I did not return my brother, I would be excommunicated both in this world and the next. I therefore have no choice but to make every possible effort to gain his release. Let me stay here as your slave in place of Binyamin, and let him go home with his brothers. I will serve you better in every way. I am stronger than he is, and I am an expert in battle and in weaponry, as well as in running a household. If you want Binyamin for drawing for water, cutting wood, or similar work, I can do a much better job. Very impressive, replied Yosef. But if you are so afraid of sin, why were you unconcerned when you... Yeah.
Why is Yehuda saying I would be better? It's like he's being like a big shot, like I'm better.
Well, he's just saying you better. So now it's very hard to figure out what's going to go on right over here, because Yosef says, if you are so afraid of sin, why were you unconcerned when you sold your brother to the Ishmaelites for a paltry sum of money? Why did you make your father suffer when you told him that Yosef was torn to pieces by a wild beast? Hearing this, Yehuda began to cry. In a loud voice he cried out, how can I go back to my father if the lad is not with me? How can I look at the disaster that this will bring to my father? He just kept repeating it. He didn't have an answer for Yosef. Yehuda was afraid that Yosef would order him to return alone to Canaan in order to obtain many bags of silver with which to ransom Binyamin. He therefore told him that there was no way in which he would return home without his brother. Seeing Yosef's adamant face, Yehuda said to Naphtali, go see how many main thoroughfares there are in this Egyptian capital. Naphtali was a very fast runner. That's why he asked Naphtali. And in a few moments he returned, reporting that there were 12 main thoroughfares in the city. Fine, said Yehuda, addressing his brothers. I will destroy 3 of them, and each of you can destroy 1. We will destroy the whole city, not leaving a single stone unbroken. Yehuda, answered the brothers. This is Memphis, the capital of Egypt. This is not Shechem. If you destroy Egypt, you will be destroying civilization. Hashem does not desire such a catastrophe. Besides, what you are ordering is impossible. In Yosef's palace, there was a stone weighing 400 pounds. Yehuda took it in his right hand. He threw it up in the air and deftly caught it in his left hand. Okay?
It's almost like a ball.
He then placed it on the ground and pulverized it with a single well-placed kick. Unimpressed, Yosef signaled to Menashe, who did the same to a similar stone. The first one's twins. So there were these 2 stones.
But they both
So-
weighed 400.
Right. Yosef said, "You think that no one is as strong as you? You'd better realize that we have men just as strong as you are. Give us back Binyamin," stormed Yehuda, "and let us bring him home to his father. Otherwise, we will destroy the city." "Such dedication," retorted Yosef. "Why don't you tell your father that a wild beast killed Binyamin just as you told him about Yosef?" Shimon all of a sudden starts talking. Shimon interrupted. "We don't have to go around the city and count its thoroughfares. Let's climb up that mountain. There are plenty of large stones there. We can throw them down on the people and kill them all." When Yosef saw the extreme measures that the brothers were ready to take, he sent Menashe to bring on the Egyptian army. He returned with 50 heavily armed horsemen and 10,000 foot soldiers, including 400 very powerful fighters, so well versed in martial arts that they did not have to resort to weapons. Menashe ordered the men not to fight with the Hebrews, but merely to attack them suddenly and frighten them. The Egyptian troops came and surrounded the brothers. The brothers were scared, but Yehuda laughed at them and said, "What are you afraid of? We are working for God, and He will surely take care of us." With that, he drew his sword and left out a series of terrifying war cries. So I guess this time he actually was able to draw a sword. The Egyptians became petrified, and one by one they began to run away. So terrifying were his screams that many women in Egypt and Goshen miscarried. They were having babies, and the babies died. Yosef signaled Menashe, who placed his hand on Yehuda's shoulder, tranquilizing him completely. Meaning Yehuda just fell asleep. He put his hand on Yehuda's shoulder. Yehuda realized that this power was restricted to members of his family. He cannot understand how an Egyptian could possess it. Seeing Yehuda's color subside, Yosef realized that his anger had been quieted down. He began to speak calmly to Yehuda, promising to return Binyamin to him on the condition that he bring him Binyamin's maternal brother in exchange. He said, "If you bring me Yosef, I'll give you Binyamin. Bring me Yosef." He said, "You told me that your missing brother was brought to Egypt. If you look hard enough, you should be able to find him. Since he is already a slave, I will take him in exchange as a slave in Binyamin's place. I see that I can't hold Binyamin since you have guaranteed his return, but since you never guaranteed the safety of the other brother, you don't need to worry about him. You'll be able to go on your way." Furious, Shimon replied, "Didn't we tell you that we don't know where Binyamin's brother is? We don't know if he's alive or dead. How can you demand something that we cannot do?" Yosef then realized that the time had come to reveal himself to his brothers. According to one opinion, the brothers were beginning to suspect that the man whom they were confronting was Yosef. But they were not sure. Only Yehuda was sure that it was Yosef. But he was waiting patiently to see how things would turn out. Then it says Yosef cannot hold him. Until this moment, Yosef did not want to reveal his identity to his brothers. He was scared that they would kill him rather than suffer embarrassment. Now, however, when he saw that they were planning to destroy the city, Yosef said to himself, "Better that I be killed than an entire city be destroyed. They are so worked up, they will not be satisfied if I give them Binyamin." Furthermore, as we wrote in Miketz, Yosef did not worry his brothers in order to tease them or take revenge. His entire motive was to test them, to see if they loved him. From their feelings toward Binyamin, he would take a cue as to how they felt about himself, which is what we spoke about before. Now, when he saw the measures that Yehuda was willing to take to rescue Binyamin, risking his life, he realized that the brothers had good feelings towards Rachel's sons. Right, Dovi? I don't know if you're looking at something, but he therefore decided to reveal his identity at this point. According to one opinion, a malach had disguised itself as Yosef and had caused the brothers all this grief. They were destined to suffer as atonement for selling Yosef. Yosef announced everyone leave. There were many Egyptians present along with Paro's men. All of them were asking Yosef to have mercy on Binyamin after hearing Yehuda explain that his father was likely to die of grief if he was not released. Even the Egyptians fell at Yosef's feet, and each one urged him in a different manner. Yosef cannot tolerate the men who were there, and he angrily ordered his servants to clear everyone out of his presence. The only ones allowed to remain were his brothers. Yosef also cleared the room because he did not want to embarrass his brothers. He also did not want to spring the news that he was Yosef on them suddenly, since the shock could kill them. The Gemara similarly warns that if a person has been away from home for a long time, he should not suddenly enter his house without warning.
Such shock can even kill. Yosef therefore began to prepare his brothers for his revelation. He said, "You told me that Binyamin's brother is dead. Is that true or not?" "Yes, Your Excellency, we are sure he is dead." "How can you lie like that? You sold him as a slave. How can you know for sure that he is dead?" "I purchased him as a slave, and I can call him right now." With that, Yosef began calling, "Yosef, Yosef, Yosef, son of Yaakov, come here immediately. Come and speak to your brothers." The brothers began looking all around to see if Yosef was coming. When Yosef saw that they were adequately prepared, he said, "What are you looking for?" "I am Yosef. Is my father still alive?" Yosef cried in such a loud voice that he could be heard all through the capital of Egypt as well as in Pharaoh's palace. The brothers were so scared they groveled at Yosef's feet. Our sages teach us an important lesson from this incident, saying, "Woe is to us on the day of judgment. Woe is to us on the day of reprimanding." Yosef was the youngest of the brothers, and still they were too confused to answer him when he revealed his identity. What shall we do when the King of Kings, Lord of the universe, reveals himself and demands that a person, let's not make a mess, that a person be presented before him for judgment? Hashem will call the individual and say, Why did you not set time for Torah study each day? Why were you not careful to wear this small talis every day? Why did you talk in the shul, a holy place where the divine presence rests? How did you dare swear by the name of Hashem and His holy Torah? How could you spread slander, destroy people's reputation, steal and cheat, or take someone's clothes off his back as security for a loan and torment him until he paid? The questioning will go on and on, including, is anyone paying attention? Including all the many sins that people usually commit without thinking. How will a person be able to stand before Hashem at such a time? The brothers felt so terrible that they literally died. Hashem performed Chiyas Amazing. Yosef said to his brothers, "Please come close to me." They came close, and he said, "I'm Yosef, your brother. You sold me to Egypt." Upon hearing Yosef's announcement, the brothers were so ashamed that they hid their faces. They were embarrassed even to look at him. Yosef spoke to them gently and said, "Please come close to me." Okay, so we'll finish some other things.
Well, we can finish at home. We have it at home.
We might have this at home.
Tel Aviv Pizza, how can I help you?
Hi, I wanted to know if I could order 2 pizzas to be delivered to my house.
Okay, can I please get a name? Can I get a phone number?
You've been listening to a podcast called Authentic Torah. It's available on almost every platform that podcasts are available. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful day.
As we head further along in the sphere of Sa'omer and we approach Matan Torah, we try to come up with innovative ways to be able to be Koine Torah. And we have a Gavra Rabbah. When they're gathered together, when the Jewish people were gathered together, they would blow the shofar 6 tekiyos on Erev Shabbos, Achar Chatzos. So, who has heard of this? Has anybody here heard of this? Even though a person has said Kriya Shema, has said Shema in Shul, it's a mitzvah likroso amitaso. There's a mitzvah for him to read the Shema on his bed. The im Talmud Chacham hu. If the person is a Talmud Chacham, he's constantly involved in his learning. In tzarch, if he's a Talmud Chacham, he does not need to say the Shema.
Entertainment edition with real weather. December 13th, 2023. Akad in Chodesh, it is Rosh Chodesh Teves, the 6th day of Chanukah, 5784. You're listening to Weather with Enthusiasm.
Meteorologist Simcha Lefton. Weather with Enthusiasm is his podcast.
The National Weather Service has issued a winter storm warning for Texas, for the Texas Panhandle, going into effect this afternoon, staying in effect through tomorrow evening. A widespread 1 to 3 inches, isolated spots up to 6 inches.
Yes!
Patchy weather. Some thunder possible, very isolated. This is in response to a closed low, a low pressure system that shoots out of the desert southwest.
Oh my gosh.
Becomes closed low. It's detached from, well, it's a closed low. Dynamic cooling is at play. That's going to be the source of the cold air coming from high up in the atmosphere. Heavy precipitation rates will be able to bring that colder air down to the surface, so we don't have the cold air in Canada. Mid-December, and what happened? What happened in Canada? Pacific air took the country over. Pacific air moves through Canada for the latter part of this week. And we have a Gulf flow that develops in the Gulf of Mexico today, moves into the northern Florida area by Friday, moves up the coast as a powerful nor'easter.
Holy cow!
Well, what could you expect in mid-December to have a nor'easter? Heavy snow, right? 1 feet, 2 feet. Nope, not this time around, because Pacific air. Pacific air comes out of Canada. The storm pulls down Pacific air. Unbelievable. There's not enough cold air. Not only is there not enough cold air, even with dynamic cooling, the precipitation continues to fall as rain. So in Texas, dynamic cooling, snow, the East Coast, Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York, going all the way up. No cold air, not even enough. With dynamic cooling, precipitation remains rain. At the very end, there could be some snow that mixes in on the western side, up in the Maine area, New England area, but that's the story. Quite a phenomenal situation, and that's the Amarillo, Texas, is full of surprises in that city. Has a reputation for that. Things are always flip-flop, and they've done it again. They did it last year in January. The South Central states pulled it off, and this year they're pulling it off today and tonight and tomorrow. Lots of uncertainties due to the snow-to-water ratio, how much will actually fall. Will there be thunder? There's a slight chance for freezing rain in some county over there as well. Stay up to date with the National Weather Service, especially I would always recommend reading the forecast discussion if you're able to for Amarillo, Texas, and then on the East Coast, I think it's the Birmingham. It's if you look in the Syracuse, New York, or the Birmingham, I think it's Birmingham, whatever it is up in New York. They really have describe it with the greatest clarity right now. You could check any city, but that city really has a lot of clarity, and they really explain how the Pacific air is taking over Canada, and that's the problem. So who would ever think that a cold front would pull Pacific air from the northern states?
Hashem made this world.
But that's what we have going on this weekend. Enjoy all the fun, enjoy the mild weather, and by the way, there's even more mild weather coming in for the East Coast after the storm departs. I don't know what's a bigger shockaroo. They're both shockaroos, and things maybe could change by then. And here in the Midwest, we remain with calmness. We'll have to see what happens after that. Have a wonderful day. Take care. You've been listening to Weather with Enthusiasm. This podcast can be found on almost every platform where
podcasts are available.